Hey everyone, today is yet another concrete cutter, Makita EK7301. At least that's what I hope it is, that's what it says right there. And this is how I got it, but it's not the only thing I've done so far. So the problem is that it over revs, and not only does it over rev, but it will rev high when you pull the trigger down. Now usually that means that air is getting into the the under part of the engine, or even the combustion chamber, I suppose, that shouldn't be there, and it's allowing the engine to speed up faster, sucking more fuel and so on and so forth. I would usually show you what exactly it's doing, but there's three reasons why I'm not going to. One, it's cold. It's about 50 degrees outside. It's in an unheated garage. It hasn't been ran for quite some time because I've been waiting for a couple things. And to start an engine and have it rev up very, very fast while cold is exceptionally bad for it. Two, well, I suppose that's also number two. But the final one is it also doesn't have a kill switch. It does per se, but it's not working. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to fix the problem, and then we're going to have to see why it's not dying when you kill it, and we'll go from there. Now, in addition to needing figuring out what's going on with that, we are also missing a air filter, which I luckily bought a couple of them with the previous, because as you know, I do work with quite a bit of concrete saws. There's, oddly enough, a variety of concrete people I work with, so these are usually a staple of mine. In addition to that, I also have a cover with a pre-filter that came with the cover, and it's a Makita part. There's the number 123309-4. I think that works with a lot of the EK series. At least it does with 701. At least we're gonna hope so. So what are we going to do? Well, first thing we're going to do is there's a couple places where air could be sinking in, and one primary that I'm 99% sure it's coming from. So how these, let me put you down. So first things first is we're going to take off the cover, and there's two of them we're going to replace. We can't just do one. This is the easy one. The other one, depending on the saw, I don't remember exactly. I'm going in between my mind between a steel and Makita, which one was the hard one. I'm hoping it's a steel that was the hard one, because, well, it's steel, but either way, we're going to do this one first. So I'm going to go ahead, tip this over. We'll replace it, this one, because that one is the easier of the two to start with. I like to do easy stuff first, that way my end of my day is irritating rather than the whole day. I don't know if this had been worked on previously, but these are usually not Phillips. At least I don't think they were. Maybe they are. Kind of seems sketchy. But if they are, and the fact that one's missing also doesn't provide too much confidence. Working on machines that other people have worked on is kind of like a 50-50 thing. Now, trust me, I've done my shady work in the past. Don't get me wrong, you've seen some of it. But in my defense, it's always been requested by the owner, which very well all the other shady stuff might have been requested by the owner too. I don't know. We're gonna take that off too. That wasn't even on there. At least not very well. We are going to disconnect the spark plug and see what size this is. I think it's a 14 millimeter or ½ inch, maybe 12. Definitely not a 12. Here's a 13 millimeter. Oh, never mind. It's a 13 millimeter. Now, on the flywheel end, because there's really not any stress on it or load. Usually righty-tighty and lefty-loosey still applies. The clutch, however, is reverse thread. I think I've only seen one clutch not reverse thread, and it seemed kind of sketchy to me, to be honest. So we have to remove this here flywheel. If you're having a hard time or you don't have an impact driver, if you take the spark plug out and shove some rope that is not dirty, a clean, non-frayed, preferably nylon rope, that way it's not easily ripped, or if it is ripped, it's not going to leave fibers behind. You can take a normal socket and just take that off. So right now we need to trying to see if this is threaded. It does kind of look like it is threaded, but there's a whole bunch of garbage in there. So, but then this is kind of in our way. The seal is underneath the flywheel. So let me do a little pondering on what I would like to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pick and kind of take out a lot of the junk. I mean, it's not going to be all of it, but it's going to be a very good section of it. And then I'm not wanting to score anything. I'm pretty much using the side of the pick and a little bit on the end, but I'm basically just trying to get rid of the dust in there. Concrete saws are a special type of dirty. I've said that in many other concrete saw videos, and I will always say that. The debris they make is very fine particulates. I'm going to try first, because usually I would take an air hammer and try to go down the center of the crank. I know that fits in there. Maybe I'm just getting more junk. Let me take this and blow it out. Cover your ears and your eyes. Yeah, it looks mostly clean now. But there's really not a good place for me to pry up on. There we go, that's much better. There's only like 6 or 7 threads anyway to engage on this flywheel. It's a very thin flywheel from what I'm gathering, but it should be just enough for our purpose. I suppose this is also a 13 millimeter. Oh, it is. There we go. So anyway, it's a very small flywheel. And technically, when I bought this, it is a steering wheel puller. But I find it works great on flywheels. If a flywheel has a threaded area like this one does, I mean, I consider this to be a fairly safe method. Maybe others wouldn't. Pullers seem to be universally agreed to that it's okay to use when pulling off a flywheel. Hammer and some type of prying device generally isn't. Doesn't mean that flywheels aren't removed every single day with those methods. It's just, you know, it's like one of those things that, do you really want that on camera that you did that? I do. I mean, I have plenty of experience, times on camera of doing that, so. Okay, now that we're tight, sometimes if we give it a quick little bump, it will just pop right off. You're probably shaking. You are shaking. Huh? Let's go a little tighter. Oh, there we go. Just came right off anyway. Boom. Well, that was surprisingly uneventful. That puller is quite useful. At least mine came with a variety of these bolts, in which case there's bolts. You can just get whatever length. If you need a special type of thread, just make sure that they're like a grade 8 bolt. And that they will not slip through those slots. That perhaps would be a problem. I hope I wouldn't have to necessarily point that out, but you never know. Some people might be a little thicker than others. Now that's taken out of the way, let's take this off. There are tests you can run to see if there is a leak in your seal. You have to pressurize the cylinder, you have to plug the intake and the exhaust. It's a real hassle, especially with this type of machine. Cover your ears and eyes again. I'm gonna let this dissipate a little bit. Before we get all crazy trying to remove the seal, which is underneath this black plastic piece, we want to take the new seal and just kind of see if it's the same, or at least roughly the same. It seems a tad small, but then when looking at it, there's a little bit of a, right after the seal, the crankshaft gets at least 1 millimeter wider on each side, so 2 millimeters total, and that's roughly what the difference is here. So I feel like we're doing pretty good. What I do want to do though is to take a little bit of towel and maybe some old gasoline. I don't necessarily want to use like brake parts cleaner or something, but so you're going to shake down a little bit. In fact, you're on the edge of the table, so let's move you. There we go. Where the metal meets the rubber, I'm taking a little screwdriver. I'm going to put a small indentation in there. I do not want to actually do anything. I want to separate the rubber from the metal part, but I want to make sure that everyone knows this. Do not actually touch the crankshaft. You will scrape it and damage it, and to the point where you won't be able to use it anymore. So be very careful. Now the reason why we're doing this part will become clear momentarily, but it's a special tool that I think is the only way to do it. Dang it. Come on. I already did this side, but I just want to make it a little bigger. There we go. So this is a seal puller. It comes with a variety of these little hands or teeth or fingers, I don't know, whatever they're called, with a little hook. Now I specially made this one. It was a little bigger for what I specifically needed. But basically, you just want to fit this under the metal part, which can take a little bit of adjustment or prying. So I'm going to go ahead and get it set up, and then when we are done, we'll continue. It's all set up, it's put in there. Now with any luck, as long as I can keep it from coming out, I should just pull them as I twist this. The hardest part is just to make sure that the teeth really grasp onto the metal part of the seal. See, it's just like these tiny little ridges, and that one might be bent, so I might be repairing that one here shortly, but the majority of it is out. So if I were to just take or even the screwdriver, or maybe we need to redo it again. Okay, fingers crossed for this time. Coming to the end of the travel, which is where we're at on the other one too. See, no matter how good the puller is, it's still by nature a puller, so by nature it's gonna try to irritate you. We might have to switch to this one because it's a lot shorter. Yeah, let me just go ahead and switch to that one. Okay, maybe I was a little dry earlier. Sometimes pullers are good tools, but pullers be pullers. Okay, very good. Close your eyes and actually I'm just gonna do this off camera, but I'm going to kind of make sure that everything in there is nice and clean. Now this is almost as important as not running the saw when cold. Check to see if you have any play. If you have any play, you should not hear a single thing. You have a bad bearing. And a bad bearing, you can fix the seal all you want, but the seal is going to just be completely ruined in a matter of minutes, most likely. Maybe not minutes, but definitely very, very quickly. So make sure that your bearing is good before you install the seal. Mine is good, so we're just going to wipe this down real quick. Now that is clean. I also sprayed the seal a little bit of, what is this, silicone lubricant, and I want to make sure that it's nice and good to go. Now you can do a variety of ways of doing this. Either way you want to be gentle. Just take a maybe a little bit bigger socket than that. I like to take a deep socket. Something's going to fit just around the outside. Like that's perfect. And a hammer. And we're just going to very gently tap it in. Make sure it's all going in there evenly. It does appear so. The beginning part's really the hard part. You want to put it roughly where the other one was. It's a little bit deeper. There we go. Here's the seal from the old one. I mean, granted it's damaged because I had to remove it, but the rubber is very crispy almost. It's not pliable hardly at all. The inside is a little bit more, but the sealing surface right there is very, very hard. So I'm feeling this is probably a good cause of our problem. This one might be a little difficult. Just gonna point that out there. because this is in our way, then we're gonna have, who knows, some type of, well, definitely some type of clutch. If you were doing this and you're not 100% sure on where a lot of this stuff goes, like the bolt wise, when you're taking the pieces off, just kind of put them somewhere like that. It kind of just keeps it easier to remember where stuff goes. I mean, granted, this is pretty easy because a lot of the stuff is the same. It doesn't really matter where each specific one goes, but sometimes you will get an oddball one. I do have a feeling we're going to have to take off that cover as well. Let's take off this. Wow, that drilled into the muffler. Ooh, and it's hot. Ooh, and the muffler is disconnected. That would explain why it's so loud. This is metal. We could bend that out of the way. Yep, gonna have to take that off. Nope. And of course it's gonna be some weird size. Not that size. Will we get lucky? It's also 13? We did. Okay, well, so far Makita likes to use the same bolt size. That's nice sometimes of them to do that to you, or for you. Yes. Ease and convenience, I think this will come off now. Yes, it will. Just put this off to the side, taking the blade off. I think it's a Steels, but one of them is not easy to put back on. Let's just put it that way. So, nice little clutch. This is the part where we might need to shove something down the cylinder to kind of hold it in place while we remove the clutch. Sometimes you can get lucky. There we go. What is this? This is 19 millimeter. Remember, lefty, tighty, righty, loosey. You're just gonna shake. Let me take this off real quick. This is a special tool to, it's a cylinder stop. It's round on the top. So basically you put this in the spark plug hole and then you push the cylinder till it touches. Now you don't want to use your tool to do that. You want to move the actual cylinder to, the piston to actually touch the top of it. Don't just ram it in there with a tool. So I'm going to thread this in and we'll take off the clutch, hopefully. Got that done, and like I said, to loosen it is the opposite of what you would expect. I end up having to use a fairly large impact, but I've held the piston in place so it's not ramming it. And unfortunately, that's just what you have to do. I don't like doing it that way, but when it's this rusted on there, unfortunately, your options are kind of minimal. Now this, it has a roller bearing inside, if you can see. Not sure. Be very, very careful. You do not want to disturb that in any way. I'm putting this in stacking order too. So we're going to do the same thing with this one. Does it roughly fit? Well, I shouldn't say roughly. Does it fit? Roughly will not be good if it doesn't. Kind of. What is this? Extra little ring on this. This might be the wrong seal too. So I'm going to spend some time, clean this up. It's the exact same process as before. The only difference is on the other side of the engine. I'm going to put it back together, and then we're going to pull it and see what happens. Hopefully it will just run like a normal machine. The next day, decided to take a little break, work on the next morning. Here we are. I obviously put the cover on, put the air filter on, all that jazz, and should be good to go. Something I do want to mention, this can also be, I'm not sure if I did mention it, this can also be a rip in the boot. There is a rubber boot that goes from the carb to the intake. If there is a hole, a slit, a cut, if it's not on there properly, anything like that, any type of vacuum leak is going to cause this problem. Reason why I thought it was the seals is I looked at it briefly because it didn't have a top and I didn't see anything. So when you don't see anything like that, it's usually a pretty sign. But we'll find out. Go ahead and give it a pull. I primed it. I put a little bit of fuel down the plug hole when I put the plug in. So it should start immediately and hopefully be enough to kind of pump the fuel into the carb and let it run off the carb. If we are successful, it will idle. If we are unsuccessful, when I give it full throttle, it will actually potentially slow down. No choke because I put in the fuel. It was a while ago, so I might still have to put choke on. Still looks like the kill's acting up, but I'm going to look at that later. But as you can tell, it idles. Like I said, I didn't want to show before, but basically imagine you just pull the pull cord and it will just rev out of control. It was especially dangerous because it doesn't have a kill. I literally had to pull the boot on the spark plug. So, very dangerous situation. I think I might do a little bit more tuning. Well, maybe not. It seems like it's running pretty good, but I'm going to let it run a little bit outside for like 5-10 minutes, then rev it up, tune it up, see if there's anything else. But other than that, if this goes for pretty much any 2-cycle equipment, if it just revs out of control and you have eliminated the possibility of a boot or other vacuum leaks, You're either looking at the base gasket, which is fairly rare, or, which is very, very common, the crank seals, which we replaced. I would highly recommend getting that seal puller. It makes everything so much easier and lessens the likelihood of damaging the surface of the crank. You don't want that to happen, otherwise, no matter how many seals you put on there, you're going to have the exact same problem. Just, it's unfixable without spending a whole lot more money. Those seals, I think, were $5 or $6 each, so $12 total. So $12 fixes this problem, and yeah. Well, hopefully you like what you see. If this helped you, put a thumbs up, and I will catch you on the next video. Don't forget to subscribe, and have a good rest of your day.